Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. I'm Stuart Roth, joined with Stephanie Hefner and Don here in our studios in Lakewood Ranch. In 1978, a small group of concerned community leaders gathered to address a growing concern: how to best ensure our local college will be able to meet the growing challenges of the future. The result of the meeting was the birth of what is today called the State College of Florida Foundation. The foundation's founders understood the critical nature of the need to sustain a great college. Their vision was a foundation that would make a great college better, a foundation that would provide scholarship opportunities to ensure access to all who desire to pursue higher education and raise funds to better equip the college's classrooms, as well as to provide funds for faculty development. And with us today to talk about the foundation, and because this is so important to all of us here at Salt and Light, education. And education means jobs, it means knowledge, it means access, it means opportunity. It's so important in the changing economy here in America. But with us in the studio is Mary Lou Bale. She's the Director of Development for the State College of Florida Foundation. For 6 years, she has worked in the Bradenton, Sarasota, and Venice communities, raising funds for the foundation and organizing annual Evening Under the Stars concerts that go towards the foundation's support of SCF. And also is Isaiah Miller, a language and literature professor at SCF, where she has served for 27 years. You don't see people staying in the same position for 27 years anymore. Mm-hmm. She belongs to a distinguished lineage of faculty members who have cemented SCF's long-standing reputation in the community for making an indelible mark on students. Isaiah was SCF's first African-American female to be promoted to full professor in 2004. She currently is pursuing a PhD in education and leadership with an emphasis in higher education administration from Barry University. Welcome to Salt and Light.
Thank you, Stuart. Glad to be here.
So, Mary Lou, we discussed the song Mary Lou before the program, and we had a common interest in the new riders of the Purple Sage.
Absolutely.
So, if anybody in the audience knows who that is, we know how old you are.
Thank you for that.
Exactly. So, tell me a little bit more about the SCF Foundation. I know it's, like I said, it was started in 1978, but from 1978 to where we are here in 2014, it's experienced a lot of growth. We have a lot of, changing economic factors. As I pointed out, when I started the segment, we have a changing economy, changing needs. Education it's always been important, but it's critical as, there's no more manufacturing jobs, and Americans have to be better equipped with knowledge and education to pursue the kinds of opportunities to sustain ourselves. So I think the foundation it's really relevant right now.
Absolutely. I think talking about the economy that we have today, one of the beauties of having a community college now grown into a state college is that we are able to deal with the workforce and create the kind of employees that our employers are looking for quickly. By that, one of our greatest programs is the nursing program, which everyone wants baccalaureate. So we were able to respond quickly to the hospitals in Sarasota and Manatee and come up with a great baccalaureate program. And to be able to do that takes more than just tuition and taxpayers' monies, because right here in Lakewood Ranch, we were able to build a simulation center so that we can train those baccalaureate nurses in the most up-to-date facility. When you walk in that building, you feel like you are in a hospital. So these are people who are being trained at the level that the employers are looking for. And so to make that happen, you have to have a great foundation. And we were able to garner the support of individuals and private foundations to help the college in building that building. And that's just one example of the kinds of things that the foundation does. And this community, as everyone knows, is an incredibly giving community, and they understand the things that are important, and particularly education and what we do.
What kind of students are you looking for in terms of your scholarship, in terms of the applicants, the type of students? Are they at-risk students? Are they students that didn't qualify for other types of... Because Florida's got a lot of different types of, scholarships.
And we are a state college, so our students are people who live here and many of them who work here. And we're just doing our application process now for scholarships, and we're putting out a flyer, and it says you don't have to be an A student, so they're not all academic scholarships, and you don't have to be in dire financial straits to be awarded a scholarship. And in reading scholarship applications and really getting down into them, what I found last year was these scholarship applications are coming from all kinds of people. They're coming from people who are right out of high school, and a great deal of them are coming from people who were let go. Their jobs were eliminated a couple years ago, and they realized, you know what, I don't need a job, I need a career. And so these are people with families who are coming back, single parents. I mean, all the stories are just incredible. And we are very fortunate that we are able to give out over $1.2 million in scholarships each year from our generous donors and people who have left scholarship money in their estate planning. So we're able to give out a lot of money to over 1,000 students, which helps all of those different people to be able to come to school and to not have to worry about, financial pressures.
Well, I've worked with at-risk children and teens, and as you start talking about college, their immediate response is the financial barrier and where that would come from. And it takes people to speak into their lives about options. And we'll hear more about that as, we have an example with Vita here today. But it takes someone to speak into their life and say, that doesn't have to be a barrier. And how great that is that it's right around the corner. Because when I started at MCC right out of high school, I'm wondering how, if that type of facility and that type of training with all of these career options at such a professional level of expertise within educating and training the students, I'm thinking, maybe I would have taken a different career path, or maybe I would have been, more directed about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I was kind of going through the motions out of high school of this is what we're supposed to do when we get out of high school. But what a great gift to open these options up to families, because I wasn't really in a position with my family being raised by a single mother to, and she was a teen when she had me, to up and move. So going to college was one step. Certainly going out of state or out of town was completely different. So I really needed to stay here. And MCC was great at the time. And now just to see this growth and the opportunity and the options it creates for our community and surrounding communities is fabulous. It's such a gift.
It really is.
Yeah. And it's nice, too, that it's not always academic driven. We were having a little conversation before the program also about how, the test scores and the grades isn't always reflective of the talent and the passion behind what people do. So I think that's a great point to point out as well, because that can serve as a barrier. People think they're not smart enough or they're not good enough. And how wonderful if we can let that go.
I want to bring Isaiah into the conversation here, because, one of the things that I noticed when I was going through your information that you provided, prior to the program, that I think is really, really important, and Stephanie knows this about me. You're a language and literature professor, yeah. And you English major, I guess, in college. Today, that seems to be something that's so lacking in students coming out of high school. The ability to communicate in writing. I remember, like yourself, I graduated from Florida State University way back when, but I was educated in a public high school in New York, and it was a really good high school. And I remember when I went to Tallahassee, one of the advantages I had over these Florida students was that I really knew how to write. My comprehension skills were really good, and theirs weren't. And I think it's so important today, especially the way people communicate today, and like texting and you have computers and writing skills and the ability to communicate that way. It seems to be a lost art? I mean, you've been in the system for a long time. I mean, what have you seen? We got about a minute before we go to break, but I just want to get your sentiments on that.
Well, one thing that I've noticed about recent trends in education is that teachers or educators at the college level, we need to make sure that we empower our students more than we have done in the past. My classroom is centered around my students. It's not faculty centered. It's not centered around me. When they walk into the classroom on the first day, and I saw this in Davida on the first day of class a few semesters ago, she was very, very nervous about her writing skills and her comprehension skills. So immediately, as a professor, I tend to make my students comfortable. I tell them that I have high expectations for them, and we progress together.
All right, we're going to go to the break. I'm coming back with you because I want to cover this. I'm Stuart Roth. You're listening to Salt and Light Radio. We'll be back after these messages.
Salt and Light Radio. You're listening to Salt and Light Radio with Stuart J. Roth.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. Higher education's in the spotlight today. We've got Mary Lou Bale from the State College of Florida Foundation, Isaiah Miller. She's a language and literature professor at SCF. And Isaiah, we were talking about education and trends and how you conduct your classes. You've been a teacher for 27 years, and I commend you on that. You say your classroom is student-centered, not teacher or professor-centered, which is a distinction from, when I went to college. So explain for our listeners what that means.
A student-centered classroom to me means that on the first day of classes, I immediately tell my students that they pay my salary. I said, I'm here to serve you. You pay my salary.
Oh, my gosh.
And I drive a BMW, I tell them, but it's really, really old, and I need a new BMW. So they laugh at that. And I make sure that they know that I expect high goals from them, and I have high expectations. I give them my cell phone number on the first day of class, and I tell them that they can call me 24 hours per day. Now, that's a nightmare. My students have my cell phone number. They may call me 24 hours per day. My husband is okay with that. It took a while to adjust, but I feel that best serves the students for whom I work. Also, on the first day of class, I try to detect their learning styles, and I can access them or assess them. I can determine if they're audio learners or if they're kinesthetic, if they need hands-on instructions in the classroom, or if they're visual learners, like 85% of us are. I'm a visual learner. So every day in class, whenever I'm teaching, I target at least those three types of learning styles. When Davida walked into my classroom, I noticed that she was very visual, but she's also an auditory learner. So she was very, very uncomfortable with being in class on the first day. But I immediately recognized her leadership skills and her superb articulation skills.
Let me because yes. you just brought her in. So let me introduce her to our listeners. SCF student Vita Biggins entered the school with a GED, and with the help of SCF advisors and professors has become a poised, accomplished high achiever who has been accepted into Columbia University, the Columbia University, New York City, Manhattan, where she will study neurological science and behavioral biology this spring. Her dream is to become a neuroradiologist.
Yes, you got that.
Wow. So you were a student of Isaiah's?
Yes, I was a student of Isaiah's. It was my first semester at SCF. So I'm 10 years out of school. I just got my GED, and the most intimidating subject for me is writing, and I'm taking it my first semester. And she's right. On that first day, I was so intimidated. I was so nervous. I still sat in the front row, because I made a promise that I would try my hardest. But I was so intimidated. And that's the first thing she started with, though, was I'm going to figure out how each of you learns. And throughout this course, I'm going to pinpoint how you will learn this the best. And throughout the semester, when she would present different material, she would say, okay, so for you visual people, we're going to do it this way. And if you're auditory, you're going to do it this way. And she just walked us through it. She didn't just hold our hands and baby us. She let us grow on our own, but she made sure that we would be successful. And it was a great introduction.
Now, and you're a scholarship recipient.
Yes.
So before, because you've got a great story, so before we get into that too much, I want to weave back in the foundation. So how did that all come together? Were you able to get this money to go to school?
Yes. So in January of the next year, I applied for scholarships with the SCF Foundation. And I hadn't heard for a while. I just assumed that I didn't get anything. But I was actually lucky enough to get a Selby scholarship. And I know the Selby Foundation is actually really active around the community here. And I got a scholarship from them for the fall and spring semesters. And I was actually able to speak at their luncheon and tell my story. They have the scholarship recipients come and we meet our benefactors. So I actually got to sit down at a table with the president of the Selby Foundation and speak to her and tell her who I was and how it affected me. It was wonderful. The SCF Foundation has been really important in my journey with SCF. They've believed in me the whole time.
And, when I talked about the students I've worked with that are at risk, was that similar to you as well? Was financial a barrier for you? Was that an aspect that you considered, that you might not be able to do what you want to do if the finances aren't there?
In a way, it's kind of a yes and a no. Mm-hmm. I have a mother who worked her way from secretary to executive. So, we weren't in poverty. However, we knew that I wanted to go to Columbia. So in order to do that, we needed help every single step of the way. SCF is a very affordable school, but we knew that there were other steps we were going to take where we needed help. So it definitely helped make sure that that was a real dream for us.
And that shows the importance, too, of people helping people to identify their goals and their dreams. Because if they're not able to dream and see past the barriers, then how can they set the goals? Well, and then where do they start?
And Vida, you were technically a high school dropout for a while.
Yeah, because you said your GED.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us about that.
So I was a high school dropout, not just technically.
I was trying to be nice. Well,
no, let's call it what it is.
Right.
When I was in 8th grade, I had a teacher who was ironically named Mrs. Love. Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Love chose to pull me aside and tell me that school was not for me. And, she said, I'm sure you'll be successful outside of school, but this whole school thing is just not your thing. And I believed her, and I dropped out of school the next year. So I was 14, and 10 years later, I decided to go to school. And I started with my GED. I got it the month before I started at SCF.
Let's talk about, because I'm just so interested in this. You took the class with Isera. This was a subject matter that was very intimidating to you. Why was that? Why was that so?
Well, I was 10 years out of school. I had been an okay writer when I was in school, but I didn't really have any high school. So I went in and I just didn't know how I would do. When you take the GED, you have to do the writing section. I thought I did really well on it, and it was actually my lowest score for the GED. And I went in and I felt like I would be there by myself. That had been my previous experience at school. No one held my hand. In fact, my teacher told me I couldn't do it. So I didn't know that I would go in and I would have this teacher who takes personal responsibility for all of our fates. And that is what I found with her.
Isera, was there a teacher in your life that inspired you to greatness?
My greatest inspiration is Freddie Brown, who is the co-founder of Family Heritage House Museum, which is located on the campus of SCF. She is my mentor. We just celebrated her 90th birthday. She's on campus on she's on campus on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. She's my greatest inspiration in terms of my educational goals, and I rely on her. I call her late at night whenever
because you're up late at night answering your texts from your students.
Yes, I'm up late at night. She has been the light in my pathway.
Go ahead, Steph.
Well, that's what I was going to ask too, is where do you get, because again, the opening segment, we were talking about empathy, and we can say words, but the response is not really the power. The power is connecting. So where do you get that motivation and insight to have such empathy and create that connection with your students?
A few years ago, I read Annette LaRose's book called Unequal Childhoods, and the subtitle is Class, Race, and Family Life. Unequal Childhoods, Class, Race, and Family Life. LaRose tells us that there are two types of child-rearing theories in America. One focuses on what she calls the natural growth strategy. Those are the children who are latchkey children. Their parents are at work. The parents are generally low income parents. The students are at home alone. They generally play sports that we do not consider to be the culturally diverse sports, such as football or basketball. And then on the other hand, in LaRose's book, she talks about what she terms the concerted cultivation group of the principles for rearing those kinds of children. Those who are reared in that philosophy are the children who have ballet, karate, they play tennis, and they're served the finest, they attend the finest restaurants with their family members. I've discovered over the years that there are positives in all kinds of people. I try to serve diverse populations in my classroom, and I can recognize the positives in the children who were at home alone until 7 or 8 at night because mother was working 2 or 3 jobs. And then I also see the positives in the children who were reared with a cultivated in the cultivated society. And I try to serve both populations and become sympathetic to both of them, and just to reach their learning styles and make them feel comfortable.
All right, when we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit more with Mary Lou about this scholarship fund and how somebody listening right now may be eligible for some help in tuition and expenses at the State College of Florida. I'm Stuart Roth. We're going to be back with more after these messages.
Salt and Light Radio.
Welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. We're talking with our friends here from the State College of Florida. We're talking about their scholarship fund. It's a fabulous program, and we're talking with Isaiah Miller. She's a teacher there she's been teaching for 27 years, and we're talking to Vida Biggins, who's going to be starting Columbia University in Manhattan.
I told you to write it down. Vida.
Oh gosh. I'm just getting too comfortable.
Yeah,
I said Vida.
For the listeners, it's VIDA. So to your credit, it's I'm sure it's easy to do.
Thank you.
Yes, but we tried to help you avoid that. But go ahead.
Vida.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
And we're going to share a little bit more about her journey. And she's going to Columbia University soon, and she has graduated from State College and was part of that scholarship program. But Mary Lou, I pronounced that right, Mary Lou. Okay, that's pretty easy. I'm one-on-one with that. But we were talking during the break that a lot of the students applying for scholarship, these are not 18, 19, 20-year-olds. The economy has pushed a lot of people to look at their careers and retool themselves and equip themselves for, a 21st century economy. So talk to me about, the applications that you're getting.
We get about 1,000 applications, and we welcome people to apply. before I answer that question, I can just tell you that this is the time to apply. We just opened up the scholarship, and it's at the scffoundation.net website.
Okay.
Go under scholarships and apply. And
so what?
And you never know, but any student, part-time students, we have scholarships for. Full-time students, anyone who is attending the college can be eligible for some type of scholarship.
And you could be 30 or 40, 50 years old.
The scholarships, reading through them, I mean, these are people who have lost their jobs in the economy, and they have said, "Wow, I wanna go be a nurse," and that's a long process. You just don't get into the nursing program. You have to go through all of the classes and then be admitted into the nursing or the physical therapy or the IT, the Homeland Security, all of these programs. So these are all ages and all kinds of people from all walks of life. Some have had a nice life, but then they lost everything when they lost their job, and they've run through their savings, and so it's so gratifying.
To do something different.
They want to do something different, and it's so gratifying to see these people come into our office, and people like Vida, and you just say, the great part of the job is we can help you. And every year when we look for someone to speak at our scholarship lunch, and they have fantastic stories, and Vida's was a fantastic story, so much so that she spoke at the new president's inauguration November last year.
Do you have more students needing scholarships than money available, or do you have more money available than?
Well, not everyone that applies does get a scholarship, but I'm going to say that it's close to 60-75% of the people who apply. So I don't want anybody to think, it's not me that would get it. If you don't apply, you don't know that you will or you won't get it.
That's right. If you don't apply, it's certainly a no, right?
Yes.
So
go ahead.
I'd like to add that my son is a recipient of the SCF Foundation's scholarship, so he's a sophomore at SCF. But my nephew, Jordan Kelly, was a recipient, and he graduated from SCF, and he went on to USF to earn a bachelor's degree in IT, and now he's in graduate school at UCF in Orlando. He's 24 years old, and this foundation really, really helped him and his parents in his desire to achieve educational and academic greatness. I'm very, very, very proud of my son and my nephew.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a seed. When you describe that, I think that is the seed for all of these other possibilities. And then speaking of Vida and her accomplishments and the support of the SCF Foundation funds to help your dreams come true, large dreams, very impressive. What inspired you to go back and even get your GED? Because you said there was quite a time gap in there. So what helped you to move past the negative comments? There's good seeds and there's bad seeds. And at 14, you were planted a bad seed.
Yes.
So what helped you move past that?
A lot. It was a 10-year journey. So I started working in customer service. I worked in customer service for 10 years. But midway through that, actually, it was an NPR radio show with WNYC called Radio Lab, where they make science interesting. So they talk about science in these interesting ways for about an hour, and they mostly focus on neuroscience. And actually, my mother introduced me to the show, and I listened to a show where they recommended a book. And I bought the book, and I understood what they were saying. And it was like this epiphany, like, whoa, maybe I am actually smart.
Wow.
So I kind of played with the idea of going to school, but I was still doubtful. What Mrs. Love said to me stayed in my head for so long. And positive reinforcement from my family for the next 5 years, I finally decided, okay, there is nothing that sets me apart from the rest of the people in college. I'm capable, and, I can do it. And so I studied for it. I bought this huge book, and I studied for the GED, and I passed. And that, even just that accomplishment set fire under me to go to school and try my best because I saw that I could learn.
Well, and another theme here that I'm picking up on is the importance of small steps. One, that Mary Lou had talked about was, if you don't apply, the answer is no, right?
Correct.
So that small step in saying, just putting yourself out there. Mm-hmm. And then what Vita had just addressed was, getting the GED, or maybe it was opening up the book and reading it and saying, okay, mom gave this to me. Let me look at it. Mm-hmm. You never know
so true.
What it's going to do. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to just, maybe it's helping somebody out there that's listening in a decision that they're trying to make about should I, shouldn't I? You're never going to know unless you try and make a step. And then you come into people, that support us and nurture us and inspire us, like Izira. I mean, it's just such a beautiful tapestry of how it all comes together.
Well, it's so important and it's so timely because during the Great Recession, which I don't think has ended, by the way, I think some of these numbers we get out of Washington are so skewed because even though the quote unquote unemployment is going down, the unemployment figures, don't take into account people that are employed part-time. So if you're employed part-time, you're not unemployed. If you're underemployed, you're not, unemployed. If you've left the job force, you're not unemployed. And that's why there's so much, suffering still in America. And I think there are probably a lot of people listening today, Mary Lou, that have lost their careers. They had jobs that basically are obsolete. They're not coming back, and they're ill-equipped for the new economy. And maybe they had thought briefly about going back to school, but maybe they're saying, you know what? I'm 42 years old. Who goes back to school at 42? But
many people.
Many people, because, it's really hard to retire in America these days. Who's going to have enough money to retire with how much everything costs? So, we may be working into our 70s. So if you're 42 and you got another 30 years in the workforce, now is the time to
make sure you're on the right track. Right.
That's a good portion of our students are 25 to 35, 40.
Right. And so I'm sure, Stephanie, there are people listening today that are locked in a career that is going nowhere. And they thought, I should have. Well, it's not too late.
That's right.
I mean, they could, you've retooled your skills, mm-hmm. and you went back to school and you
just finished a year ago for graduate work.
Right. I mean, and that takes, and you had an undergraduate, 4-year degree, but it wasn't getting you where you needed to get. And, mm-hmm. I think going back to school and looking at the economy today and what are the jobs? What are the jobs in the 21st century? If you have a job that was something in a field that was great in the 1990s, it's not helping you in 2014. So we've got about a minute left. I want to thank everybody for being here. But Mary Lou, what are the needs of the foundation for somebody listening today? We're trying to get people to, think about changing their careers if they need to, and State College of Florida would be a great place to be. You've got scholarships available, and I'm sure you're also looking for money.
We're always looking for money because the technology changes so fast. So not only do we want to help students like Vita accomplish their dream by taking away that financial burden, we want to provide them with the best and the most up-to-date tools for the career that they're going for. So we have one of those 3D printers down on our Venice campus. So we need contributions to help the faculty and the staff and physically to have the buildings that we need so that we're teaching them what they need when they graduate, that they walk right into that new business, knowing everything.
All right, I want to thank all my guests for being here today. State College of Florida, a great academic institution here on the Suncoast. I'm Stuart Roth. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you again next week. God bless.
Salt and Light Radio with Stuart J. Roth is a program service of Salt and Light Productions, supporting nonprofit organizations across the Suncoast. For more information, find us on the web at saltandlightproductions.org.